Hey there, I am Kim Snider from Sync to CRM, and I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate it. So today's topic is inspired by a comment that I ran into on really like this obscure blog post that I just happened across the other day. And the comment was in support of the view that basically Facebook ads are a scam. And so the comment was, and I have to look at my notes, hang on. So the comment was, as a Facebook member yourself, have you ever called or bought anything through one of the ads? Now, like right off the top of my head, my first answer to that was, whoa, no, I never have. And that set me back just a little bit, I have to say, right? Since my business is all around Facebook ads. And this is a pretty common refrain, the more I started to look into it, that you hear a lot from people who have been unsuccessful with their Facebook ad campaigns. So in this episode of Kim Snider Live, what we're going to do is explore the question of, are Facebook ads a waste of money? And as it turns out, that exercise, that as I was doing it, it's really very instructive and helpful. So that's going to come up here in just a quick second. But before I jump into that, and by the way, I see a bunch of you on the broadcast, so obviously I've done a better job of letting everybody know that we are, how to get to this. I'm also just going to refresh the page over here so I can see your comments and things. Hopefully, there you guys are, yay! But before I just dive into this topic, I do also want to make sure that you all know about the cheat sheet that I put together for this episode, as I do every week. I put together everything that I think I'm going to cover in the broadcast, and I always try to include some bonus material that isn't covered on the broadcast just about every week. So rather than trying to remember all those nitty-gritty details, just go to sync2crm.com/EP8, as in episode 8. And if you are wondering how to spell sync2crm.com, it's with the number 2, sync2crm.com/EP8 to get this week's cheat sheet, okay? So, now, also, as you're listening, it would help me a great deal if you would share this out on your timeline or pages, assuming, of course, that you think it is worthy of a share, because that helps me get in front of more people, which is, of course, the whole point in doing this. And then, finally, one more thing. Be sure and type in your questions early, because here's what happened the last couple of weeks. I did not realize, at the end, I asked for questions, and I'd say, any questions? Nope, no questions. Okay, see you guys later. And then about 5 minutes later, your questions would show up. I don't know if it was 5 minutes. But what I've discovered is that whether it's because I'm out on a farm with crappy internet or it's just Facebook Live, like there's a really long delay between when I see your questions and when you type them in. So if you have them, go ahead and put them in early. Don't wait for the end, because I'll miss them again. All right, so on to today's topic. So again, if you weren't here at the beginning, I mentioned this comment that I came across in this obscure blog post, and let me give you I just paraphrase or cut it short, but I'll give you the full comment here. The full comment was, I don't want to sit here and explain, but think, as a Facebook member yourself, have you ever called or bought anything through one of the ads? Okay. And as I said, right? I mean, like, have you? Because my first response was, ooh, no, I don't think I have. And so I had to think about that for a little bit. But, okay, let's think about that. Like, what does that mean exactly? Does that mean that Facebook ads don't work and that it's all just some big scam to make Facebook billions of dollars? And you know what, actually, this will be fun. Actually, before I go on and tell you what I think, I want to know what you think, right? So why don't you leave that in the comments? So are you on the side of those who think that it's just a silly waste of money? Or that it probably has ROI, but that the ROI is murky at best? Or do you think that it definitely has ROI, which I assume you would know from your own experience? Excuse me, frog in my throat. You know, and that people who say otherwise are just, you know, conspiracy theorists or just, you know, making up excuses for their own campaigns not working. Whatever it is that you think about this topic, just let me know in the comments, because it'll be interesting to see what everybody has to say before I go through, you know, what I came to after thinking this through. And I see the first comment just came through, so that's a little bit of a delay. All right, so this idea that Facebook advertising is a scam. So it originally got a lot of play back in 2012 when a guy put out a very well-produced YouTube video, which I will link to in the cheat sheet for this episode. Again, Ep8, sync2crm.com, Ep8. And he made the argument that Facebook was a scam. And the thing was, number one, his arguments seemed logical. Number two, the guy has a huge YouTube channel. I forget it. I think maybe I have this wrong, but I want to say it was like 770,000 or 700,000. I don't know. I mean, it was a lot of people, and he produced a lot of, you know, really strong content, right? So right away, with that big of an audience, when he says that, is he's going to be taken seriously. So it got a lot of play, and it was well done. But the thing was, once you watch it, and that's why I put the link to it in the notes. You should go watch it in the cheat sheet. You know, is what you realize is that while the arguments are compelling to somebody who doesn't know anything about Facebook, when you do understand ad targeting, you understand that there's lots of holes that you can poke in his conclusions. And one of the major issues that he brought up was this thing of click farms, and that, you know, Facebook was paying people in third world countries to click on your ads in order to, you know, make revenue. And the click farm thing is still something. I mean, Facebook advertising is matured, let's put it that way. And that click farm thing's mostly gone away, although there are some gurus out there, sadly, who will coach you to still buy Facebook likes in third world countries, which you can do surprisingly easily. If you've ever done it or know how it works, my ex-partner used to do it, and so I know exactly how it works and how easy it is to get, you know, likes for fractions of a penny. And the idea of doing that is that when someone comes to your page and sees 35,000 likes, that they're going to think that you're some hot crap or something. It's a stupid strategy. It can still be done, but I mean, look, that's not a Facebook problem. That's a problem with the advertiser being disingenuous, okay? So that's not really the issue. So click farms aside, okay? The idea that Facebook ads don't work and that Facebook is just stealing from advertisers still persists, especially among those who number one, resent the Facebook's restriction of organic reach and having to now pay to put their content in front of Facebook users. And then the second group, I think, where this persists is amongst people who have been unable to create profitable campaigns. So, what's the answer? So I'm not even going to address number one, because to me it's not interesting or relevant. If you think that you are entitled somehow, being the keyword, entitled, to get your content in front of Facebook users for free, even though you may have been able to do it for a long period of time while they were, you know, building up their business model, then you don't understand how business works, and anything that I'm going to say on you is probably just going to be lost anyway, or say to you is going to be lost on you anyway. So we're just, you know, we'll skip past that one because it's boring. But number two Number 2 is definitely interesting, especially in light of the comment that got me on this topic in the first place, right? And again, for those of you who missed the comment at the beginning of the broadcast, it was, I don't want to sit here and explain, but think, as a Facebook member yourself, have you ever called or bought anything through one of the ads? Okay, now, in the investment world, which is my background from a former life, they study this stuff with a great deal of rigor. In fact, they give out Nobel Prizes for that research, right? But in advertising, not as much. And my guess is that this is partially due to the speed with which things change, right? I mean, like academic, because I looked at a few and they are very few, but the academic studies on Facebook, look, I mean, they are obsolete before they are even published. But here's what this whole question boils down to. Do a significant number of Facebook advertisers get a positive ROI, return on investment, on their ad spend? And, you know, with investment research, it's really easy because the researchers can rely on data from millions and millions of brokerage accounts going back many, many, many years. And it's very black and white. Either you made money or you didn't. There's no interpretation there. But unfortunately, we don't have similar data pools on what we call ROAS, or our return on ad spend. And so my review, which I did yesterday, indicates that the best data, and I do mean data in air quotes because it's thin, what we have is the annual state of marketing report done by Salesforce each year. And again, I'm going to link to that in the cheat sheet as well. But I think, I read it when it came out this year, but I went back and looked at it again, as I think you should if you're doing Facebook advertising. And that report is instructive in a number of ways. The first thing is, it's really interesting, the observation that they make that the term digital marketing is now basically redundant, because this year marketers are spending over 70% of their ad budget on digital, and that the next, hang on, I actually have it in my notes, the next 2 years, 97% of them, I think I can't find it. Yeah, 97% of marketing leaders, what they call them, plan to either further increase or maintain their level of spending on digital marketing. So, okay, well, that's interesting. But the second highlight for me was how they broke up their respondents, the survey respondents, into high-performing, mid-performing, and low-performing. And what they found was that the high-performing marketing teams represented 18% of their survey population, and they defined those as those who are extremely satisfied with the current outcomes realized as a direct result of their company's marketing investment. That's 18%. 68% were very or moderately satisfied, and another 14% were not at all satisfied. Okay, slightly or not at all satisfied. Okay, so basically you have a bell curve. Okay, which is interesting. And then finally, among the high performers, 80% of them will increase spending on advertising on social platforms. That's Facebook. And it's also the most popular digital advertising strategy, with 65% of marketers currently using it and another 17% planning to use it this year. Now, why do I bother? Why am I telling you all that? There's a reason here, and it's germane to the original question that we started out with. And it is this. Anyone who knows anything about free markets and capitalism knows or has probably heard about, Adam Smith's The Invisible Hand. Okay, and so from a very broad theoretical perspective, in an even remotely free market, Facebook advertising must work. or dollars would be leaving Facebook in ads in droves, not going in the other direction, which is what is happening. So there's that. But then, you know, okay, what about this guy's comment about never clicking or buying anything on Facebook? Which, you know, there's something to that, okay? Well, okay, let me ask you this. How often have you immediately bought something after hearing, like, say, a radio spot or seeing it in a magazine or on TV? And I think, if you think about it, you do, but eventually, right? Because unless it's an infomercial, the purchase is rarely right then, okay? Now, do I click on ads for webinars or you know, I'm trying to think, launches, because there's one going on right now and it's everywhere all over my newsfeed, or, you know, watch videos that are interesting to me, or lead magnets? Yeah, sure I do, right? And sometimes I will go to their website and see what they're all about. But someday I may buy, or maybe not. But someday is the point. It's exceptionally rare that I would just buy right then. Exceptionally rare, unless they just happened to catch me when I desperately needed what that said, right? But two things about that. One, if I had never seen or heard that ad, then I would have never known about them, and then therefore my chances of buying would be zero, right? And number two, the other side of this is if they had immediately put an ad in front of my face screaming, buy this, like an infomercial, then I never would have clicked. And because that's not what Facebook is about. Facebook is about relationships, right? With your friends and your family. It is social. It is a conversation. And if you don't understand that context, then you can't be successful advertising on the platform. So again, I want to strongly suggest that you go look at that state of marketing report that I put in the cheat sheet, because it actually highlights, I feel very gratified, it actually highlights all the things that we talk about all the time. Things like personalization and relevance and customer journey, which implies a time period between when you first hit somebody's radar and when they eventually buy from you. Which, by the way, takes me back to last week's topic on episode 7, which was the 3 Facebook ad metrics that needed to die. Because what this idea of a customer journey makes clear is that Facebook's metrics for measuring success are completely and totally inadequate. And I've got the perfect example. And this, by the way, this is common for me. It was common back in my investment business. It's still common today. I had someone sign up for my Inner Circle program the other day who I had never heard of, never interacted with. He had never bought from me, and he bought my Inner Circle, which is, of all the things that I have to offer, you know, one of the most expensive things that I do. And when I looked at his customer record in my CRM, he had been following me for years, all the way back to the API guys. That's like 3 companies ago, years, literally, right? And this happens a lot. It used to happen to me all the time. In the investment business, I had a radio show for 9 years. And I'd say, where did you hear about me? And, oh, I've been listening to your radio show for years. And I'd be like, really? And, you know, like, what finally got you to come, you know, to call me? So you just, it's not, unless you're Amazon, you know, I mean, it's not like that. It's a journey. Now, in the case of that guy, I don't know what was the first thing he clicked on or how he found me, because I wasn't tracking it way back then, right? But how you track Facebook's ROI has to be more nuanced than just did a lead convert to a sale within 7 days of seeing my ad? Because in many, many cases, I think if that is the way that you are tracking, and by the way, that's the way Facebook will do it as well, then you are going to think that your ads are unsuccessful, right? And that it doesn't work. I mean, you're going to have, and I know a bunch of you have heard me say this so many times, you're like, get off it. But you have to have software that ties the sale all the way back to the first click. And not just the first click, but also to the last click. So that when we get a sale or an opt-in or a lead, whatever, that we can say, you know, both how do we attribute that sale, and then what moved them off of the fence. So, you know, okay, I'm just making this up, but, you know, oh, this guy, he originally, you know, clicked on a video that a Facebook Live I did years ago. So that was the first click, but it was this email that I just sent about X that he clicked on immediately before the sale, and, you know, that's what got him to buy, or, you know, presumably, right? So it also means that depending on the length of your sales cycle, you may not be able to see the entire impact of your ad spend right away. And so again, back, you know, when I was in the in my investment business, I went all in on radio. And I was so fortunate because I had this really great sales rep, Bob Saunders from KRLD, if any of you are in Dallas. Because I knew nothing about mass media marketing back then. And Bob taught me so much. And one of the things that he helped me to understand, because it was in his best interest, was that I had to be in the ad game for the long haul. And so the idea was, because an ad flight, I don't know what it costs now, but back then it was huge money. I mean, you were taking a massive risk, 20 grand, okay? So the idea was that, yeah, absolutely, you had to get some customers right then. They heard your ad, and, you know, and they went through the process and they bought within a reasonable period of time, because you had to pay for those ads. Being a small business, if you didn't, you'd go out of business very, very quickly. But that was just about it. I mean, each one was like kind of a break-even deal in the early days. But because of that effect that I just told you about, of people listening for years, what ended up happening was like this snowball effect. And I see the same thing with what I'm doing now with Facebook advertising. It's the exact same idea, that cumulative effect over time makes those ROI numbers turn into a hockey stick. But it's a little bit like compounding returns. And I'll just give you an example so I think you can kind of understand. If I take $1, it has to double 20 times to become $1 million, okay? But what happens is that first double out of the 20, I only get $1, an extra dollar. 1 is now 2. I get an extra $1. 2 is now 4, right? So there's 2 more dollars. 4 is now 8. Okay, so there's 4 more dollars. So I've had like 3 doubles out of 20, and I've got, I don't know, $7 or $8. That's it, right? And I'm slugging my guts out and getting not very much return. After the 10th double, which is half of the doubles that I need to get to $1 million, I don't remember the exact number, but it's like $1,979 or something like that. Check me on that, but it's something, it's very close to that number. $1,900 after 10 doubles. And then think about the 19th double, right? That 19th double gets you from 500,000 to $1 million. That 19th double, you get $500,000. That's the hockey stick. And the problem with the hockey stick is that while you're slogging your guts out on the front end of that stick, you think nothing is happening. And it's very, very tempting to say, this isn't working, and, you know, I made $2, you know, big whoop, this sucks. But if you give up on the second or third double, you miss that 19th double, which is the $500,000, okay? And that's exactly how radio advertising worked for me. and it is exactly how Facebook advertising is now. I'm not pretending that I'm anywhere near like, you know, this stage yet, but I've experienced it before, you know, and built a, you know, number 826 on the Inc. 500 list doing it that way, and I can already start to see. So, all right, so hopefully that helps you guys, right? I know it was a little bit of a jaunt from, you know, where I started to where I ended up, but for me, Ep8, Ron, sync to CRM / Ep8. So for me, here are the big takeaways. Number one is that Facebook advertising does work, or else the free markets would have put it out of business long ago. Number two is that in the general population of marketers, there is a bell curve, and 18% are overperforming, 14% are underperforming, which leaves the other 68% who are right in the middle. And that just from a logical stink test perspective on this question of it, you know, is it a scam? That, you know, that speaks to the fact that that is logical. It makes total sense. And then finally, the third thing I would say is that if you are questioning whether Facebook advertising works, then I'm going to put this back on you. You know, the smartest business minds and the collective wisdom all agree that it is working and that it is the future. So you can either pout and whine and, you know, pound your fists on the table about it not working, or you can figure out what you specifically need to do to get into the higher part of that bell curve, right? Make sense? Okay, so with that, again, the cheat sheet is sync to the number 2 CRM / EP Earl Paul, as in episode 8, the number 8, okay? 8, there we go. And it looks like I got a few questions, so I'm gonna go ahead and take those as well, and let's see what we got here. Hang on, let's see here. Jim says, I see it working myself. Yes, I have clicked on ads and gotten value. Okay, Emily says, in our experience, it's not necessarily about making a transaction through Facebook. It's about engaging with the audience and showing them the content so that it's in the back of their minds. Absolutely. Most of the time, you have to connect with the customer multiple times before they will purchase. That is absolutely my experience as well. I'm going to come back to Jim here. Pat says, I use Facebook as our primary ad platform with great success, primarily for leads and replenishable product for sale from site. Okay, great. And then Jim says, Jim actually has a question about Facebook Live. Jim says, is it possible to use Facebook Live to show our desktop, or is it only usable for talking heads? You can potentially do this with the desktop. A lot of people are doing it right now. I am not, because I don't have the internet capability to be able to do it. There are a number of pieces of software that you can use. One is Wirecast. It's about a $500 purchase for that, but I used it ages ago, back when I used to stream, years ago in my investment business. We used to stream our seminars, and it's a great professional grade product. There is basically a open source version of that called OBS that you can look up. And then I just tried one called Switcher Studio, which I loved. I loved it. It was elegant, but again, it doesn't work for me because I'm out on a farm with, you know, third world countries have better internet than I do, so that didn't work. Ron says screen view is no different on bandwidth. No, it is actually. It couldn't That's exactly what they told me, what Switcher Studio told me. So I don't know. Anyway, we'll talk. And then there are a couple of others. They're actually, you know, now that Facebook Live is becoming the hot thing, there are several others. I know Pat says I use Switcher Studio and I'm very happy. Okay, Ron, we're going to make an appointment. Ron says he's going to show me how to get it done, because I would love to be able to do desktop stuff with you guys and, you know, be able to put the URLs across the screen and stuff, and I have not been able to make it work. Let's see. Yeah, thanks. Okay, Pat's got a couple other ones. Nomadcast. I know that Jason Swank is using a new one. And I just can't call the name of it, but there was a discussion about it in the Facebook ad questions group. You could look up Switcher Studio, and I think it's in that same thread, so you'd probably find it by a search. So there are quite a few. So that's the long answer to your question. The short answer is yes, you can. And you know what else? The weirdest thing, like right in the middle of my broadcast, for those of you who've been on here before, my it stopped, reconnected, and for the first time ever, there were no comments until the broadcast stopped and reconnected on my phone, and then all of a sudden I have comments. So there's some crazy shit for you. Anyway, Facebook Live is, it's fun, and I have seen a lot of results from it, but it still is. It's a little quirky, I just have to say. All right, any other questions, you guys? Let me just scroll some more. Anything else? All right, then of course I know there's a delay, but I am gonna go ahead and call it a day, and I want to thank you guys. I mean, I know this is, compared to a lot of people, this is not a massive audience, but for me, this is like the biggest yet, and I just thank you guys so much for being here. I hope you found it helpful.